Yo, what's good everyone? Today I want to talk to you guys about a little something. That little something being the PS1.
A little bit of background before we dive deep into this topic. A while back I made a video about the PS1. Yeah, big whoop, right? Believe it or not, I made a video about it, and now I'm talking about it again. I know people always say that you will always be your own worst critic and whatnot, and that statement will always be true. I really don't like this video, and the reason why is because I felt so cold and robotic. Like, you could tell I enjoyed talking about the PS1, but in terms of being like a personal video, it's terrible. In all honesty, if you watch another PS1 review on YouTube, you're gonna receive the exact same information that I talked about. Overall though, my main problem with the video was it lacked how I truly felt about the console. To me, the PS1 is undeniably strange.
Why do I feel this way? Well, in all honesty, I don't know if I'll be able to ever truly express why this thing bugs me, but I guess I'll try.
Let me get this out of the way first. The PS1 isn't the only console that makes me feel this way, and it isn't just consoles either. It can be specific games, computer stuff, and other pieces of outdated technology and media that I just find fascinating. But the PS1 is the thing that we're going to talk about today, and this time, it's gonna be personal. Some people, when they look at me, assume I'm older than what I actually am. Now, I'm not gonna tell you outright how old I am because, well, you don't need to know that, you silly goose. But for this video, we need to address the fact that as a kid, I didn't have a PS1. As a matter of fact, I didn't have a PS2 either. But I did grow up with the PlayStation 3. I didn't play it nearly as much as the Wii, but hey, I still played it a ton. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, along with Minecraft Battle minigame, those truly were my first ever online gaming experiences. But after some time, my dad bought two PS1 games on the PSN store that he played in his late teens with my uncles and cousins. Those two games being Crash Team Racing and Bomberman Party Edition. These two games to this day still hold so much value in my heart. I love playing CTR in general, it's a game I can always go back to. I can boot it up and sink hours into the adventure mode, and give me some time and I'll 100% the game and be ready to do it all over again. Besides the stupid crystal collecting missions, those flippin' suck. And also Bomberman just in general had a huge impact on my childhood. It was the game when my family would have company over, you know, kind of a strange choice, but the raging and the yelling was just hilarious to me. But anytime I would boot up one of these games on the PS3, I was met with this. This didn't bother me too much, and like I said, I was a kid, so the only PS I really knew was the PS3. And I may not have been the pointiest pencil in the desk, but I did know how to count, and with that skill, I knew there were numbers before the number 3.
So yeah, digital PS1 games on my PS3 was kind of the gateway for me into knowing that the PS1 even existed. You know, it's a little anticlimactic, but that's how it goes sometimes.
Finally, we truly reached the topic of the video. This PS1 has been with me for quite a few years now. I've got a small collection of PS1 games. I don't really play them that often, but when I do, I'm just gonna use the PS3, it's so much easier. In all honesty, I barely ever use this thing, I don't really have a reason to. But I guess let's just take a look at the PS1. It's the most video game console looking console I've ever seen. Open, power, reset the green indicator light, memory card and controller ports, and the disc lid. Opening the lid, we see the lens with an engraving telling us to NEVER TOUCH THE LENS! Boop. Nothing really strange about this, right? I mean, it looks normal, you know, sure, mine's a little yellow, but oh well. How about we plug in everything though, so we can really begin our discussion. Alright, we got the power cable, the AV cable, the memory card, and the controller. This is where the oddities for me may have first been established. The DualShock controller has never been my favorite. I don't own the original DualShock controller, but I do have the PS1 redesign. It's the same flippin' thing. They didn't change this controller for like 15 years. To me, it just feels oddly small and it's not comfortable for me to hold, but yet I'm okay with it, because in actuality, it's exactly what I grew up with. But anyway, without fully ado, let's actually get into the PS1 and power it on without a game disc inserted. The PS1 proudly announces that this console is a product of Sony Computer Entertainment, showcasing a vibrant orange quadrilateral with layers that come together to form a unique logo. Obviously, the most significant portion of this opening is that sound. It starts before the screen fades into the white. It perforates your eardrums before you see the actual introduction. This sound, along with pretty much everything else I have to say about the PS1, can be described as so. It's nostalgic, but not necessarily comforting. Familiar, yet strange. When the console detects that there isn't a game disc inserted, it boots you to the main menu. Now, depending on what era your PS1 was made in, the menu could possibly be different. Mine is the SCPH7501 made in September of 1998, so I got this bubbly blue menu. And why the PS1 feels the need to tell us this is the main menu in the top right when it is very obvious, I can't answer that. This menu is so simple, which isn't a bad thing, but I mean, we don't even get a settings option. The PS1 does not like to be messed with, which is a recurring theme, as I'll explain a little later. We have the memory card option, which lets us view the save data on a memory card. You can copy save data, copy all save data, delete save data, and exit to the main menu. Yeah, there really isn't much to it. Also, this is a good time to bring out how there's absolutely no audio in the PS1 menus. Which, hey, you know, that's not groundbreaking. The Nintendo Switch doesn't have any music in its menus. No, I don't think you get it. There aren't even sound effects when you move your little cursor and click on things. Aside from the console introduction and whatever game or CD you put in the console, this thing is dead silent all the time. Speaking of CD, that's the only other option on the main menu, the CD player. This allows you to do exactly that, play tracks off a CD. Despite what some people may think about the audio quality regarding the use of an analog composite audio-video signal, it actually sounds pretty alright.
I mean, sure, if you used it as a flippin' boombox for a party or something, you're gonna hear some static.
But man, if you just wanted to listen to an album or your own tracks on a burnt CD when you do chores or something, it works. It works perfectly fine. Real talk though, speaking of these AV cables, I don't know if it's just because they're old or something, but these things are junk. Mine are the official PlayStation AV cables, but where it actually plugs into the console, it's really loose for some reason. Also, this weird tumor right behind the plug, if you ever so slightly bump or twist this thing, it severely distorts the signal and can lead to you losing connection. This cable sucks. Now, aside from playing games, playing music, and messing around with memory cards, that's it. That's the extent of the PS1's natural capabilities.
Real quick, let's do a little recap on the main points before we talk about the next topic. Personally, for me, the PS1 is a little strange because, well, number one, I didn't really grow up with it, but in a way, I mean, I kinda did.
Number two, the controller is so familiar because I grew up with it because of the PS3, but despite that, I still really do not like this controller. Number three, the PS1 introduction movie is something alright. To most people, it's nostalgic and all that, and I agree, I love it too. But I can't help but feel slightly off whenever I see, but more so listen to this introduction. Now, I'm not trying to be over dramatic for the video, but I'm just trying to get the point across that the PS1 introduction is just so cinematic for no reason, and it's just weird, and it makes me feel weird. The sound is so piercing that it makes it even weirder considering number four, the console is dead silent. You would think for a CD-based console that they would heavily push the idea of better audio quality, which, hey, again, put a CD into the console and boom, there's your audio that you wanted so bad. But aside from that, the PS1 menus do not have any music or sound effects at all, which in all honesty fills me with dread every time I navigate the PS1. And speaking of navigating the PS1, number five, this thing is barren. Sure, you know, I get it, it's from 1994, it was meant to play games and audio CDs. That's it, that's all it was ever meant to do. But oh my gosh, this thing just feels so empty, primitive, and unnatural, and it almost makes me feel like I really shouldn't be playing this thing. Which leads us right into number six, do not mess with this thing. The PS1, despite its strangeness, is a very simple console. So when you try and do something that the PS1 really didn't expect, things can get really weird. As we mentioned a little bit ago, the PS1 plays games and audio CDs, we already went over the CD player, so let's try playing a game. How about CTR? Alright, gotta get the game off the shelf, pop the disc in, and turn it on. Yeah, like I brought up earlier, this is the screen that I remember vividly because of playing a game like CTR on my PS3. The introduction movie combined with this screen, it's so unnecessarily cinematic, but I love it. So yeah, we get it. It plays game discs and audio CDs. CDs. The compact disc. Yeah, big whoop. Everyone was using CDs at this point. Nintendo, of course, though, was not having any part of it, so they famously backed out of the Nintendo PlayStation concept, which led to Sony creating the PS1 and Nintendo sticking to their guns with their cartridges. Now obviously, CDs were the better choice as they had so much more storage space on them, along with having better audio quality and a bunch of other factors. But out of all of this, Nintendo was right about one thing. One of the reasons they chose to use cartridges for the Nintendo 64 was the ongoing threat of software piracy, and with the introduction of CDs, pirating games and software was now easier than ever. They didn't sell blank N64 cartridges at Walmart, but CDs? That was the definitive format for storing data. Everyone could buy CDs. But it wasn't just piracy, as cheat devices and most notably mod chipping were on the rise, which led to Sony and game developers taking some interesting actions. The one that always comes to my mind is the software termination screen in Spyro Year of the Dragon. All of the Spyro games had pretty crazy anti-piracy measures, but Year of the Dragon takes it a step further. The game can actually detect if your console has a mod chip inside of it, and if something was flagged, this happens. Software terminated. Console may have been modified. Call this number. No transition, no audio, it's just you, and the fact that something is wrong. Imagine getting a PS1 at a garage sale as a kid that you did not know was mod chipped, and you tried playing Spyro, and this just appeared out of nowhere, and you do not understand why. It's strange, and it's weird, and it's borderline terrifying, honestly. There's a couple different variants of this screen too. The Japanese one, to me, is the strangest because it doesn't have a phone number, unlike the English one, that you can call for assistance. But it being in a different language, one that I can't readily understand, it just makes it that much more shocking to me. The PS1 is trying to tell me something is really wrong, but yet I can't understand it.
Hey, so while editing this video, I actually found out that there was an older Japanese software termination screen that just had a red hand and nothing else. That's strange. That is strange.
But what if you were a good kid in Sony's eyes that was just curious how CDs even worked? Well, to tell you the truth, you weren't exactly free from these weird technological occurrences. You may have thought, the PS1, it's kind of like a computer, right? I mean, when I turn on the console, it's got the computer right there. Do you think it can play my computer games on the TV? There's no harm in trying, right? Please insert PlayStation CD-ROM. Yeah, if you wanted to play Freddy Fish on your PS1, it's unfortunately not gonna work. Apparently, if you try this on one of the newer PS1 redesign consoles, you'll get a similar screen that has been dubbed by fans the red screen of death, so yeah, that's pretty nice. So even though you can't play your PC software or even listen to the game's soundtrack on the PS1, you still can't take away the fact that it is a CD, and the PS1, well, it can read CDs. So for a brief moment, let's back up a little bit. So the PS1 intro movie isn't just a movie. The proper term in computing is a basic input-output system, or simply BIOS. Now what the PS1 BIOS basically does is check to make sure everything is alright. That's why there's the moving logo on screen and the long piercing sound. It's so iconic that if something messes up, you'll be able to tell right away. One of the things that the PS1 BIOS checks is the disc inside the console. If there's no CD or if there's a blank CD inside the console, you go straight to the main menu. If there's an audio CD inside the console, you go straight to the CD player. If there's a PS1 game inside the console, it boots straight into the game. And if the CD inside the console matches none of these, yeah, you get spat out back here, or like we said, if you're on a newer redesigned PS1, you go to the red screen of death.
So, you may be wondering, Minty, where the flim-flam are you going with this? And to that I say,
I love you, PlayStation. Please don't hurt me when I'm sleeping.
There could be a way to let your PC games run on your PS1, but perhaps we should involve some trickery of sorts to deceive the PS1 into actually running these games. Let me explain.
So remember the BIOS, right? It checks to see what type of disc is in the console, and when it finally reads what type of disc it is, it boots to the corresponding action. What is normally an invisible process that is shielded by the disc lid can be seen by the naked eye by the use of a device referred to by the mortal man as a paperclip. Make a shape that looks similar to this out of the paperclip. Shove the paperclip in to hold this button down that's normally held down by the disc lid. This makes the PS1 think the lid is closed, but in actuality, it's not. This lets us actually see the disc reading process, so let's take a look. We're gonna play Crash Bandicoot Warped, and look if you can actually see the transition from verifying the disc to loading the actual game. Did you see it? It speeds up. It can be pretty easy to miss, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. The slow part is the PS1 verifying what type of disc is inside the console, and when it recognizes that it's a PS1 game, it gets faster and begins to load the game. So what does this mean for us now? Well, what if we tried to trick the PS1 into thinking that it's gonna play a PS1 game, but we actually try to load a PC game? This is called disc swapping. Basically, we let the PS1 verify that our PlayStation game, Crash Bandicoot Warped, is in the console, and as soon as the disc starts to speed up, we swap it out for our PC game, Ready Fish. It's genius, right? Oh my gosh. It's beautiful. Let's take a look at what exactly is wrong with this screen. Well, I mean, there's a couple things really. The big thing is the absolute absence of the PlayStation logo. Where did it go? And also the licensed by Sony Computer Entertainment America line. Yeah, that's gone too. But this time it's replaced by two X's that aren't even in that line to begin with. This is called the Forbidden Image, and surprisingly, this isn't the only one of these. I actually came across a couple more variants when recording footage for this video.
I got whatever that is.
I didn't even mean to do that. I didn't even disc swap or anything. I was just trying to load a game like normal, and I got whatever this is, so maybe my PS1 laser is dying? I don't know. But yeah, since we made the PS1 think it was reading a PS1 game and we swapped it out with the PC game, yeah, the PS1 does not have the required anything to run this disc, so the console just flips out and blows up because it doesn't know what to do. So in turn, we get stuck on this forbidden image, that is until we reset the console, of course. So yeah, you know, that's pretty strange, right? Well, what if I told you that we could see Stranger Things. The forbidden image? Come on, man, that's like baby stuff compared to what the PS1's freakishly broken operating system is capable of. Now, a bunch of people do know about these weird inconsistencies, but unfortunately, there's a ton of misinformation on the internet when it comes to triggering these weird errors. So I'm gonna try and set things straight a little bit, keywords try, and a little bit, because despite us knowing that these errors exist, the reason why they happen may not always be clear, and it honestly may just be a case of some PS1s do it and some don't. Alright, so for these next two errors, I'm pretty darn sure I cannot trigger them on my PS1. The reason for this first one is my console is not mod chipped. The PlayStation Wiki says that the way you get this error is by putting a CD, like a PC game, into a mod-chipped console, and supposedly it will trigger. I guess in theory this also works with some PS2 games. Yeah, a good chunk of people don't know this actually, but a lot of PS2 games were on DVDs, which have the normal silver side on it. But some games are actually on CDs, and they have the vibrant purple side. You know, just a little fun fact. But yeah, pop a weird CD into the mod-chipped console, and supposedly this is what you get. Absolute nothingness, just a gray screen with a terrible out-of-tune PS1 game startup. This is called Personified Fear. The reason why it's personified, just ask someone else, because I genuinely don't know why it's called that. Again, like the forbidden image, it's just stuck on this empty screen until you reset the console. The reason why this happens and why it's different from the forbidden image is actually pretty interesting. As mentioned earlier, the forbidden image appears when we trick the PS1 into thinking that it's gonna run a PS1 game. Personified Fear appears because instead of tricking the PS1, you use the mod chip to completely bypass the process of verifying what disk is inside the console. Now that the PS1 is being forced to read the disk, the PS1 really doesn't know what to do, so it ends its suffering. This one's strange and creepy, but this next error is genuinely downright terrifying, and in all honesty, it's the #1 reason why I find the original PlayStation undeniably strange. This is the most famous PS1 error, and because of that, there's a lot of misinformation surrounding it. Even on the PlayStation Wiki, which I forgot to mention, this is fandom.com, so all this information is probably horribly wrong. But anyway, the article about this error, it says it can be triggered by disk swapping, you know that thing we did earlier? With a disc like a PC game. And yes, that is true, but like I mentioned early on in the video, my console is an SCPH-7501. Why does that matter? Well, the SCPH-7000 consoles marked when Sony tried to really crack down on hardware issues. They strengthened the laser and also removed excess and unnecessary components and chips that could make the console freak out, which also helped Sony with their battle against people mod chipping the console. I tried a bunch of different times to trigger this error on my console, but I either just got the forbidden image or the please insert PlayStation CD-ROM screen. The wiki backs that fact up, saying that it doesn't work with 7000 models and later, but it says that instead those models will get the red screen of death, which that's just wrong. My PS1 doesn't even have the red screen of death, let alone the operating system that has the red screen of death. And even if your PS1 is a pre-7000 console, there's a chance that you just get the forbidden image. You can't guarantee the Fearful Harmony error showing up every time, even if you do the disk swapping trick correctly every single time. The other method listed by the PlayStation Wiki is just the same method to get the Personified Fear error. I really don't understand what's true and what isn't anymore. But that's enough about actually triggering the error. What about the error itself? Well, if you somehow get it to appear, this is what you end up with. Or this, or this. or this, or this, or this, or this, or this, or this, or this. The PS1's BIOS is the most broken piece of software I've ever had to sit through. But despite that, all these different versions of this error have one thing in common, and it's what happens when you wait on this screen for just a little while. This absolutely haunting melody starts to play, which is known as the Fearful Harmony, a harrowingly messed up version of the PS1 startup. But it's not just a compilation of broken sounds, it's a song, a real melody, one that is truly impossible to feel safe and sound with. The reason why the harmony even exists is actually pretty interesting. So the PS1 startup sound, it's not an audio file, but it's actually played live every single time when you turn on the console. So from what I understand, when Fearful Harmony occurs, it's basically trying to play the sounds correctly, but fails, so it just ends up playing the raw samples at different pitches on loop that coincidentally sound like an actual song. I remember seeing a bunch of theories online a while back how Fearful Harmony, along with all the other previously mentioned errors, were implemented by Sony on purpose to scare people of all ages away from hard modding and piracy, which, I don't know, maybe could be true, but there's really no way for us to know for sure without an original PS1 developer coming forth and speaking the truth. In my opinion, if you ask me, all these errors are completely unintentional. Now I know that's not what the people want to hear. I know that's not the fun answer, but let's be honest with ourselves, that's what makes the most sense. This was the era of early 3D gaming. It wasn't uncommon to experience crazy bugs and glitches in both games and consoles. Sony definitely had to be aware of some of these PS1 errors because, as previously stated with the release of the 7000 models, Fearful Harmony couldn't be triggered anymore. So yeah, that's my take on it. Sony, I think, knew about these errors, but without reworking some of the core hardware functionality of the console, they really couldn't be fixed. So at the end of the day, these errors are just part of the PS1's identity. And with my beliefs that the errors are unintentional, well, in all honesty, that makes these errors all the more strange. You know what, actually, scratch that. I'm not even talking about the errors anymore, just the whole console itself, the Sony PlayStation, the PS1, the PSX, whatever you prefer this thing to be called. It leaves me with so many questions. Why did I kinda grow up with this thing despite not actually owning one until many years later? Why is this one of the most bland console designs I've ever seen? Why did they not change this controller design for over a decade? Why is this console's opening and game loading sequences so unnaturally cinematic? Why is the rest of the console completely silent with no menu music or sound effects to be heard? Why is the console so unbelievably barren in terms of things to do in the menus? As a company, I guess I understand why they hated piracy, but was hard modding and mod chipping really that big of a deal? People buy the console, people do what they want with the console. If they open it up and mod the console, well, it violates the warranty, so why do they care? Why am I allowed to trick the console into breaking itself and display the forbidden image? Genuinely, why is that a thing? Why does both Personified Fear and Fearful Harmony even exist? When something goes wrong, why doesn't the console just display the forbidden image instead? Why is Fearful Harmony so flippin' creepy? Why does this console feel so empty and lifeless, but yet it has so much personality? Why is this console so incredibly broken and weird?
Well, that pretty much concludes this lengthy rant of a video, but before we go and close the curtain and whatnot, I just want to make one thing clear. I actually love the PS1. Sure, I mean, I don't really like the controller, and I do find the console's design both inside and out to be a little bland. It still is a unique machine. This console has some of my favorite games and franchises of all time. I mean, I think of CTR, Symphony of the Night, Metal Gear Solid, Harvest Moon, and quite a few more. And even though the PS1 can be creepy and downright terrifying at some points, it honestly makes me love the console even more, hence why I made this video, even though I made a quote-unquote video on this console like 2 years ago. You know, man, I just really wanted to do this thing justice because, in all honesty, I really do love this console. I find it super fascinating, and I just kinda wanted to share how I felt about it with you guys. But yeah, overall, to me, the PS1 is undeniably strange.